Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting of the Council for Human Services to order and read this fascinating script. Public participation guidelines. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. Ruthie, if you can change your name and add your last name, that would be great.
How do I do that? I'm just not.
Jericho, can you do it? Okay, Jericho can do it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Let me see if I can do that. You might have to approve it.
Okay.
Okay.
I know how to do that if you want me to help.
Let's see if Jericho can do it, and then we'll give her some instruction after I get through this.
Sure.
So if full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who does not use a full name or acts inappropriately. Fair warning, everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Brooke Moore, Chair of the Council for Human Services. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Jocelyn Ramirez.
Yes.
Ruth Tanico.
Yes.
Cindy Rivera.
Yes.
Claudia Valle.
Yes.
Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jericho Mealy.
Present.
Ann Medina. Ann, can you hear us? Uh-oh. Jericho, can you reach out to her? Oh, there she is. She's coming in now. Athlon Sweeney, when are you? Oh no, she's not connected yet. All right, I'll bring them in a minute. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Mike Horton from the Nantucket Public Schools.
Here.
Great, thanks, Mike. Good evening. This open meeting of the Council for Human Services is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Council for Human Services is convening by the video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to share your screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public who've joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote at this meeting will be taken by roll call vote. So I'd like to confirm, Athlon, that you can hear me now that you're here.
I can.
Great. And Ann Medina, you can hear us?
Yes.
Terrific. We're on technologically wise. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to do so? Anybody?
I can make a motion.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. And a second?
I second.
Okay, second from Athlin. All those in favor by roll call vote. Cindy,
Yes.
Athlin,
Yes.
Jocelyn,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
Claudia.
Yes.
Okay, we have an agenda. Okay, we had gotten the minutes from the June meeting sometime back. We took a bit of a hiatus. So are there any comments on the minutes, or I would entertain a motion to accept them? Anybody want to make that motion?
Making a motion.
Okay, a motion to approve from Claudia, a second.
I second.
Second from Cindy. By roll call vote. Cindy Rivera,
Yes.
Jocelyn Ramirez,
Yes.
Claudia,
Yes.
Athlin.
Yes.
And Ruthie, I'm not going to call on you since you were not there. So that's typical. If you're not in attendance, you don't vote on the minutes. So that passes unanimously. Okay. So the first major item on our agenda tonight is following up on a conversation we had about topics as a group that we wanted to cover and have discussion about. But before I do that, I want to take a moment to introduce Ruth Tanico, who's our newest member. She was appointed by the select board to fill an open seat. And I just wanted to say, welcome, Ruthie. And if you have any questions in the process as we go forward or how things go along, please feel free to chime in and ask your questions. The town governance and how things work is a little unique for first timers. I think this is your first time serving on a committee. So follow along and don't be afraid to ask questions in the chat or chime in and ask us questions as we go along, and welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here and see you all and join and be able to be part of this committee. I'm very, very excited about it. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Thanks, Ruthie. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Mike Horton. Mike, thanks for coming. I explained to Mike that one of the things that this group had expressed concern about was issues around bullying in the schools. And particularly there was some feedback from the group about a rising issue around kids at home with Zoom, seeing each other's homes, and that there was some tension in that area among school kids. And it was elevated as a topic that this group was interested in just learning more about the process of how the schools handle bullying. And so we invited Mike here to give us a little bit of a summary of how it works in the schools and what the process is, and just learn more. So Mike, thanks for coming.
Sure. So my name is Michael Horton. I am the Cyrus Pierce Middle School principal. This is my second year as principal of the middle school. I do think it's important to share that 10, 11 years ago, I've been in the district 20 years now, coming up on 21 years, that 10 or 11 years ago, I was in a central office role and was part of an anti-bullying committee that was formed out of the wake of the suicide of Phoebe Prince out of South Hadley, Massachusetts. Bullying has been around for hundreds of years. If you research that, there's documented cases going back to the 1800s. But really, in my career as an educator since 2000, it was in 2010 that Massachusetts required all school districts to not only form a committee and have representation at a statewide conference, but go back to your districts and write a formal bullying plan, which you can find on our npsk.org website. It's on the district website. If you go on the left-hand side, it's one of the 10 or 11 main things around calendar, employment opportunities, different schools. So I want to share that even though I'm not the central office bullying coordinator anymore, I am the CPS middle school principal, but I was part of actually writing the current plan that we have in place, and that we contracted with MARC, M-A-R-C. That stands for the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center. They're based out of Bridgewater State. All the research is based upon Dr. Elizabeth Englander's work, and she has turned over the coordination of Mark working with school districts to Dr. Megan McCoy. Megan McCoy has been to NPS, I think, close to maybe 4 or 5 times in the last 10 years. She comes by every 2 or 3 years when we kind of review and update our bullying plan with the entire staff. She's not been here in 2 years, so she's probably due to a visit this coming spring or fall 2022. So that's kind of the logistics of where we are. Now, I'm happy to speak tonight as the middle school principal, and I can answer questions specifically about the middle school, but I just want to say that I'm no longer in that central office role. That if you want to talk about the district stance or processes on bullying, that would be either Dr. Jennifer Raybould or Dr. Mandy Bardsley. They are the curriculum coordinators who basically work with Dr. Beth Hallett in the central office. The middle school is a hot spot for bullying, but I want to read the definition of bullying because it is important to point out a key word, repeated, because there's conflict between students on a daily basis. There are moments or instances where students are mean to other students. There are times when someone gives someone the finger. That is not necessarily bullying. Bullying has to be a repeated action. And I'll read the definition in a minute. This is very important because in the last 2 years, unfortunately, I've seen the overuse of the word bullying. And when we overuse a term, it actually kind of like the boy who cried wolf, it diminishes the meaning of the term. You'll hear kids say, "Why are you bullying me?" You know, if a teacher assigns homework, a student responds like, why are you harassing me? Why are you bullying me? So we have to be careful that we don't throw around the word bullying at every single incident or occurrence that happens between kids and even between kids and adults or adults and adults. That's very, very important because unfortunately, when we do that, then it overshadows some of the possibilities where maybe there is a little bit more and we're not digging deep because people are now conditioned that people just throw the bullying term around, you know, haphazardly. So I want to read this definition, which is directly from our plan. Bullying is the repeated use by one or more persons of a written, verbal, or electronic expression, or a physical act or gesture, or any combination thereof, directed at a target that A, causes physical or emotional harm, damage to the target's property, places the target in reasonable fear of harm to himself or his or her property, creates a hostile environment at school for the target, infringes on the civil rights of the target at school, or materially substantially disrupts the education process or the orderly operation of a school. Bullying includes cyberbullying. So some important things there obviously is the word repeated. It has to be a repeated gesture or act. And there has been in the last 10 years an uptick in cyberbullying. I mean, if we go back to the original documents of this plan, we talked about MySpace. You know, MySpace doesn't exist anymore. And before that, I can't remember, there was even another one before MySpace. That has actually morphed into Facebook. But if I use the word Facebook around middle schoolers, they'll say that I'm, you know, a grandparent, you know, that I'm a dinosaur, because unfortunately it is morphed into TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. That students communicate with each other faster and more frequently through cell phones, well beyond text messages, that many parents have no idea that it's even happening. This is what's really concerning to me. And even though I don't have jurisdiction outside of the public school, if you listen carefully to that definition, when something going on outside of school spills over into school, then it does become my responsibility because it disrupts the operation of the school or infringes on someone's safety or the comfort, which in turn infringes on their civil rights to a free and appropriate public education. So I'm just going to wrap up a couple things and then I'll happy to answer questions. Last year, there were 3 allegations of bullying that made its way to my desk, which means a teacher or a parent or someone brought something to a school counselor, and the school counselor did the first round of investigating and said, you know what, we have a repeated act here. We have something that's happening more than once between students. In all cases, it was between 2 students. And in all cases, I did find that there was an element of bullying. In all cases, my responsibility was to make sure that students were safe. And what's the tricky thing for me as a principal, I have the rights, I have to protect the rights of all kids, not only the target, but also the aggressor. So even a bully has rights to a free and a public education. So in many times, I would say 90% of the time, the solution is to separate the students. So the one concrete thing I can do to make the target feel safe is to change the schedule or placement of the aggressor and try to think of better fits for the student. Then, of course, we look into regular counseling, safety plan. You know, does the student feel okay? Look for any other repeated retaliation in the hallway, on the bus, on sports teams, at the Boys and Girls Club, any place where the students actually might cross paths. All 3 of those situations ended once we made some schedule adjustments and we monitored the progress and did not hear any further issues or complaints. It's interesting to note as you talk about concerns over remote learning, I was worried about that, but I did not have any bullying allegations on my desk during the remote learning period last year from early September up until April. The 3 bullying allegations from last year that I found were actually bullying all happened in May when the students returned to school in person. Now, that's not to say there weren't problems or concerns with remote learning, but they weren't of the bullying nature. For a while, we were requiring students to keep their cameras on, but through research and conversation, we determined that we couldn't do that. And we had to allow students to turn their cameras off. Zoom and Google Meet got pretty savvy and they started putting weird backdrops or scrambling the backdrops so people couldn't see into students' homes. Because I didn't have so much of an issue of bullying, but students would have inappropriate either posters or symbols within their own homes, which is their own freedom of speech right. That it's interesting territory. Is that now part of the classroom when a student is participating at home through a camera that shows their private home, but to other students in school? So in the end, we said, you know what, it's fine to turn your cameras off. Now that led to a whole other level of participation, who's really there, attendance. You've probably all read, you know, remote learning was really cool and fun for a hot second. And then as we got further into it, we realized there's no replacement for in-person teaching and learning, and why we've worked really hard to keep our schools safe for students to be back in school. In closing, this year, we have had some incidents of students taking pictures of other students and sending them around to other kids. When we go to investigate, it is really hard because the evidence disappears. It's virtually impossible to trace back to phones unless we were to get like a court order with the police, which is a whole other level, which will happen and can happen, but I haven't gotten that level yet this year. but we have had situations where students would either text inappropriate things or ask people to send pictures of themselves that were inappropriate. And that's part of the cyberbullying or sexting issues that we address with Dr. McCoy when she comes and talks to us from Mark from the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center. That is pretty much the update. And I just keep in mind, like, I will be happy to answer questions about the middle school, but I can't speak for the high school or other classrooms across the district.
I had muted myself there and I was chatting away. Thank you very much, Mike. So does anyone on the board have any questions that they'd like to ask or comments they'd like to make? And I want to remind everyone that we are not talking about individual situations. We're talking about general policies and procedures, definitions to help our understanding of how the system works and so forth. So Cindy, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I'm curious as to whether the middle school has a program of some sort to prevent bullying or to inform parents and families about how to go about it. You spoke about what you do to remedy, but I'm just wondering about prevention and information.
Thank you. So 2 parts to that question. I'll answer the easier one first. All parents sign an acceptable use policy relative to technology when we distribute Chromebooks. And in that, parents are signing off that they're responsible of monitoring their students' activity on school devices. So if students are emailing each other using their school account, if they're sending pictures of each other's school account, that ultimately comes back to the parents. We do have digital literacy. There's an entire curriculum of standards about internet safety that we have in our STEM class. 2 years ago, before COVID, it was taught through Becky Hickman in the library. It was part of the library curriculum. Now it's part of our computer science STEM class that we have. And many students this past month of September started the year with talking about digital literacy, internet safety. The second part, in terms of educating and proactive approach, we have been concerned about students' social emotional concerns, well before 2010. It's just things get brought to the front or becomes a higher priority over the last 10 years. You add in remote learning and students spending more and more time on technology. You talk about PTSD and students who are returning from a pandemic. We have started with a DESA screener, which is teachers actually answering questions about students' social emotional awareness and the kids' kind of responses to different situations and how kids have resiliency skills or do not. And then we look at that data, and the guidance counselors will pick up the students that we together realize have the most concern. That was last year. We're continuing that this year, and we've added the actual education layer. We have purchased what's called the TRAILS program, which is out of the University of Michigan. There are 20 lessons that teachers will teach with students on Fridays. What we've done is we've extended homerooms on Fridays. Instead of being 10 minutes, now they're 40 minutes. They go from 7:50 to 8:30 on Friday mornings. And the homeroom teacher will work with 13, 14 students. The first lesson 2 weeks ago was about hierarchy of needs, recognizing, the students have shelter, food, appropriate membership, belonging. So that was the first lesson. So we have 20 lessons, and in those lessons, we discuss, and students end up discussing, how they handle relationships, how they manage conflicts, how, not only students, but I've seen it with adults who are very defensive or paranoid, who assume or jump to the negative, and they haven't even really listened or thought or asked questions of what someone was saying. So that's a pretty cool program. It's called Trails. I'm not the expert to speak on it. We have Jackie Norman, Donna Coffin, school counselors, as well as Adrian Lombardi and Tracy Malu, who are the assistant principals at the middle school. Becky Cressy, our social worker. There's actually 5 people at CPS who are more versed on the Trails program than me. But that's kind of a long answer to your question, which is a very good one. But that is something we concretely have in place this year, which I'm very proud to say we've done 2 lessons and it's gone very well so far.
Just to
Thank you.
follow up to that, sorry, may I
That's
ask?
Mhm.
So does that program, or I'm just curious, I don't have kids in school, so I don't know how that works. Does the school ever have like a parent kind of meeting where they address this kind of stuff with parents as to how to go about if their kids have, feel like they are being bullied, how do they go about, within the school?
Yes, it has been probably a couple of years since we've had a parent forum like that. Unfortunately, through COVID, we weren't able to have assemblies or events. We just started having principals' coffees back in person. And I know that bullying has always been a hot topic. It's something we talk about. When Dr. McCoy comes from Mark every couple of years, there is a parent night component. We invite, all parents to come. We invite private school teachers and parents to come. Unfortunately, it has been, decently attended, but we don't require parents to attend an evening like that. It's something that we wrestle with. Like we've talked about the community school. Tracy Roberts, who's the director of the Nantucket Community School, should we have a program on coaching parents or helping parents to recognize signs of students who are in trouble, or reminding parents that they're a parent, not a pal. They have the right to hold their kid's phone at night and not let the kid be on it. They have the right to look at their kid's phone. I mean, anyone under the age of 13 doesn't have their own app, their own access. I mean, a parent is logging that kid in with one of their own emails. So any kid 6th grade or younger, it's probably something that's probably in the parent's name to begin with, which means they really should be monitoring that. What tends to be tricky is when the students start saying, I'm my own person, you don't have the right to monitor my information anymore. But there's a need there that, and I think this is a good group to talk about this. How can we, I've thought for years, it'd be great if we had more classes to help parents to be, to help assist parents through challenging situations. Coaching, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Thanks. Athlon?
Hi, Athlon Sweeney. Mike, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. So helpful to just hear it from you, what's happening. I, as a parent of a child at CPS, have really appreciated your videos of the information coming out. Like you send the newsletter, but you also talk about it. And sometimes that's just a nicer way to really understand what the newsletter is saying, and you give all the detailed information. I'm wondering, just food for thought. I work, I'm busy, and those things come to me and I see they're there and I just save them in my email. So I know I can get back to it and watch it. I wonder if something like the guidance department would do a little piece just on social emotional things for you to add on there, including bullying. Like maybe they choose something each week, or maybe if you guys notice hot topics that are happening in the school, pick something that week that has to do with that topic and then I think a lot more parents, the access piece is just there. What I don't know is do you have a translation piece there? I've never actually looked, I should have, but I didn't look to see if there was an ability to translate it, because if that's on there, that would be fantastic.
Mike?
Yeah, just to share that Adrian Lombardi, assistant principal, she did the update today, this week. So we're headed down that direction of, different people focusing different things. I hear what you're saying, though, there should be a weekly guidance component. But I certainly could have Jackie, Donna, talk about trails some week. Unfortunately, you'll be disappointed. Adrian did not do a video. I know that and I should have said, I'm a parent of a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. So I have a 7th grader at CPS and a 5th grader at NIS. I know how busy families are, and I know sometimes you just press play and you can be cooking dinner, checking the mail, doing your own emails, and just listening to me talk like this, so you don't have to read all the text. Okay. The Loom video, there's buttons on the front page that show you how to click the closed captioned, so everything is translated into any language. It's pretty cool. Samora has that also. If you look carefully on my updates, there's a whole section about how to translate this page. It's probably now been pushed down enough because it's been there for a while, but it's underneath the repeated announcements. Athlon, I do love your idea. I should have a guidance corner or something in the update. And the plan was for Tracy to do next week and then start in a rotation so it's me, Adrian, Tracy, me, Adrian, Tracy. But I think adding a guidance component is a good idea.
Okay. Cindy, I'm going to see if anybody else wants to speak first. Anybody else on the board have a comment? And by the way, Sue, thanks. Welcome. Nice to see you. Did anyone else? And yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Thank you. And I apologize for my tardiness. Just swinging back from vacation, so out of sorts. But Mike, I'm so glad you're here. And I had a thought, which is not necessarily related to the bullying, but as a person who works in the field of various human services, I think if you reached out to community partners, they'd love to put little pieces in about issues that are topical, that are, immediately relevant to what's happening in the schools. And hopefully that would help parents ingest it, because I think, we all get a lot of information all the time. And unless you need it, you're not going to remember every service that's available everywhere. But I know that there are community partners that would be happy to put in timely information quickly, kind of on demand. So just throwing that out.
Great.
Yeah, I don't want
Thanks.
to put in a plug, but later this month, ASAP, we're having the week leading up to Halloween. It's also homecoming weekend with the Vineyard Cup. The Island Cup, excuse me. It's our cup, right? The Island Cup with Nantucket versus Martha's Vineyard on Saturday, October 30th. Trick-or-treating is then in town back on the 31st. That week leading up to is the Spirit Week. It's homecoming week. It's also ASAP, so there's going to be a day that we wear red. And, you're right, Sue, but if you can help me, not just ASAP, but what other island organizations should I be reaching out to? If you want to email me some other ones that I may not be aware of, that would be great.
Great.
More than happy to do that. Thank you for asking.
Terrific. Jocelyn or Claudia, or Ruth, any questions for Mike before I go back to Cindy? You can just unmute and speak up if you don't do that, I will have Cindy do her follow-up.
I just thought that Athlon's idea was so wonderful. And I know that Michael spoke about the component of the subtitles, but I wonder if there's any way that the voice, even if it were like a voice in a different language, it's so it's way easier for someone to listen to audio than read text, even though I understand that technological or whatever logistics may be involved. It's just so much easier, and I think you would reach way more people within the smaller communities if there was a voice component too. Maybe the community school, or I don't know, somebody can help with that.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of time goes into those videos, and many times, like right now, Monday night, it's right now 7 o'clock is my time, and I don't get all those videos in one take. So it would take backing everything up to like have me do it in English, give the script, or have someone else watch it and then repeat it in Spanish. And I'll tell you that someone else might say, wait a minute, we need to reshoot that. It takes time. I mean, sometimes I get them in the first few takes, but my family who's here tonight, they're like, Dad, like you got to do that one again, or, oh my God, you got 2 takes. I hear what you're saying. I think there's probably some other solutions. What's really cool about S'more is it tells me how many views I got. So if we have 426 families at CPS and 404 viewed it, I know at the minimum, pretty close to everyone at least clicked into the video, which is awesome. And I will tell you, just based on kind of qualitative data, I get email responses in many languages back to me because it comes from the Student Information System Aspen. It doesn't come from my npsk.org email, it comes from Aspen, but Aspen copies me. And people respond to the email from Aspen, even though they're not really supposed to. They're supposed to email me separately, but they respond to Aspen, but the system sends it to me and I get it like completely raw as is. And what's really cool is because I have Google, I click Google Translate and it translates the email. And I'll tell you, 7 out of 10 of the emails that I get back are not in English. So that tells me that a good number of people are at least reading and then asking follow-up questions. But you're right, just as I said earlier, there's nothing like pressing play and listening. It's a lot more efficient and easier than having to read 8 minutes of text.
Yes, that, Mike, just for your information, that's been an important topic for this group since the pandemic really is language access to information across the board. And we've looked into and investigated a number of different technologies that haven't gone the way we've wanted to and so forth, but it is always on this group's minds. Since you're scheduled to go do videos on your calendar, if no one else has any comments or questions, I think we could thank Mike, and maybe if we have anything else, we could follow up with you by email from town staff. Athlon, did you one more thing?
Yes, thank you. One of the things that I heard, Mike, historically, is that people are fearful sometimes, as we know, all kids are fearful for having their parents coming forward about a bullying issue. I don't think any child is, like, yes, go to the school. But one of the things I was hearing is that some of the, through the community, children who were saying that they were having some form of bullying, don't know if it fits the actual definition, but is that they're worried it's going to get worse. So I'd be interested at least here to understand from you, it sounds like when it is addressed, it gets better, that you don't keep seeing the issue coming up over and over again. So when people are using the system is working.
Yeah. Retaliation is always a concern. But I can honestly say that in the past 2 years, we've handled some challenging situations very appropriately, respecting confidentiality, where no names are shared. And honestly, we have such a supportive staff that even if a student is not comfortable, maybe with a parent, that they might have a homeroom teacher, school counselor, even a school administrator. There are some students that I know through Little League or some other organization that they're comfortable coming to me, or they have a relationship with their teacher. They just love, their 6th grade math teacher. And they just have formed this bond. And kids at the middle school age, they share a lot. The teachers are all mandated reporters, and they want everyone to feel comfortable. And we've handled the situations that I'm aware of very well. However, what keeps me up at night are all the things that we don't know about. What really scares me is, and it happens so much, and I'm glad we talked about remote learning, and hopefully that's gone for a little while. That students were on devices like this, on calls, and they were, whether they were taking pictures or watching videos or thinking something's funny and then sharing it with someone else. And unfortunately, like some of these shock value YouTubers or bloggers or Instagram folks, I mean, we had the Devious Licks Instagram challenge, like bring our school to a halt this month. And currently at CPS, we've had to lock all of our bathrooms to be able to supervise one bathroom because kids were vandalizing the bathrooms because someone on Instagram said, hey, here's a challenge, go do this. And when I learned that there's a challenge each month for the year, that's the stuff that I can't, I can't control that. It's beyond my control. So we do need people to speak up. We do need people to say something. We do need people to feel comfortable reporting to someone. And I say the only way we can do that is building the trust that we handle it well. So other kids who because kids talk to each other, they'll say, hey, I was having a problem with so-and-so, Mrs. Coffin, Mr. Horton, Miss Cressy handle it really well. And I feel so much better now. And then we do some follow-up. But often, thank you for asking that question, because I want students to know that they need to be comfortable to say something or report it to someone. That is number one, because if we don't know about it, we don't know about it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate all the hiccups we had getting you here finally. And this has been really interesting, and we appreciate it very much. So please feel free to sign off as we move on in our agenda. You're welcome to stay, of course, but as a busy parent, I'm sure you have some other things to do around the house.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sorry I missed that last meeting. I'd be happy to be back, on another topic. Keep me in mind. I want to share the wealth. I wouldn't want to be the sole spokesperson for Nantucket Public Schools. There's good 12 administrators there, not just principals, but assistant principals and central office directors. And there's a variety of topics that we could speak about if you had concerns about, the social emotional health of our students.
The other thing that I'd like to say is that your the conversations we've had about collaboration with other organizations, this board, is newly reformed as of a year ago, and we've talked a lot about what our job is, and to some extent, our job is improving communication across the community in the human services area, so that the community's better taken care of and is healthier overall. And so this board is a good place, we think, to foster the kind of collaboration that we've talked about a little bit tonight, and hope to do more of that. So we hope you'll reach out to us as well if there's help we can provide you in making connections and so forth, and doing the work that you're doing. So thanks so much. Okay, have a good night. Okay, so moving on, we're going to get an update from our Director of Human Services, Jericho Mealy.
Hello, all. How's everyone doing tonight? Not much going on in my land right now, aside from the 65 plus category of COVID booster shots. We started scheduling those last week, and we have about 360 or so to do in the next 2 weeks. The Nantucket Cottage Hospital is stepping up a mobile vaccination clinic on Mondays. They're going to be doing booster shots for everyone 50 and up. I think they'll also include teachers, et cetera, in that category, and then a lot of the occupational categories, which we are not going to get to. Am I coming through, or is this just all
Yeah.
wobbly? Okay.
No, so far so good.
Sorry, my connection has been trash today, so I don't know if we're freezing or not. Let's see, what else? The town's vaccination process will be wrapping up first doses in November. The Sunday after Thanksgiving is going to be the last first dose clinic we do. And then the 21 days after that is going to be the final regular open first and second dose vaccination clinic. I also hope to have us out of doing booster shots relatively quickly. Outside of the town, there's going to be the Cottage Hospital, and then there's Health Imperatives also doing Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson for first, second, and third doses. For human services groups, the behavioral health assessment is running through. I'm also going to be trying to work with our town sort of graphic design team, basically for Florencia, to get a nice front end put onto our network of care website, which is or was intended to be a all-inclusive island human services and other agencies contact database / basic case management system. It was started up at the beginning of COVID, and as a result didn't go anywhere. So we're going to be kind of revamping that out, trying to incorporate that into the CRC grant process, and then sort of getting more eyes on it, as well as getting it in front of more eyes so that we can start to user test it. Basically, I want to try and have it be sort of fairly nimble linguistically. I wanted to have the information on different town services and how to get to them. And I'd like to have it be used because it has the potential to be an extremely helpful tool, especially if we can find some way to integrate it and bridge across the sort of digital divide issue on that. Other than that, mostly just kind of trying to get focused back on behavioral health and support for what could potentially be a stressful winter from a behavioral health and a human services point of view. So trying to spin back up support systems for people who need to quarantine and isolate, trying to kind of just make as much headway as we can on identifying and coordinating on behavioral health problems before they happen, and then getting as much support as possible to people as easily and effectively as possible. That's basically it on my front end. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. Did we lose? Sure, go ahead, Sue.
I just want to confirm I heard correctly. So the
Well,
town
no.
is, oh, you back, Brooke?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? I lost my internet for a second. I don't know what it is. Thank you, Jericho. The only other thing I wanted to add was that the vaccine clinic is now at the ugliest building on Nantucket, the temporary building at the old fire station, only on Sundays from noon to 3.
And
So-
Sue, sorry, you wanted to confirm one thing there?
Oh, yes. So my question was, the town is getting out of the vaccine business by the end of the year? Is that what you were saying?
For regular standing clinics, we are probably not going to have one after the beginning of 2020, once into 2022. We definitely have on-site outreach and a variety of other vaccination services we're probably going to continue to do. Certainly when we get full approval for student use underneath the 12-year-old age, we're going to be involved in doing that vaccination process.
Okay.
But those need to be in more controlled settings than I basically have access to. So it's going to be a kind of a partnership between either the public schools or the hospital or a variety of other different people as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from the board for Jericho?
So Jericho, the booster shots are being scheduled through the town. Is that how?
So there's 3 places doing booster shots right now. There's Health Imperatives, who scheduling and then doing them in-house for clients. Then Nantucket Cottage Hospital will stand up a booster shot clinic on Mondays. They've hired a ambulance service that they've convinced to come over from the mainland. They come in, they do a day's worth of vaccination, and then they pack up for the day. That's probably going to end up being the highest volume method. Then us, and then for us, you go to the town webpage. We're only doing 65 and up. I just don't have the manpower to do any more than that. But if it's 65 and up of any type, they can sign up online at the town's nantucket-ma.gov/vaccine. That'll be where you can find the sign up tool. And then I schedule them every 3 days in fixed blocks. And as they cancel out, I just sort of backfill the schedule in. Right now, I think we're fully booked for boosters until the 22nd of October. I think this is for the general 65 and up category. If there are immunocompromised people 65 and up, we have a different intake process because that's a much more pressing health issue than just the general 65 plus.
Okay, Eflin?
Hi, Jericho. I'm curious about the boosters. It's Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. If somebody's had Moderna.
At the moment, the only approved 3rd dose is Pfizer. Pfizer is advised, in general, Pfizer is advised if you have an mRNA vaccine, you would get a booster of another mRNA vaccine. So if you have Moderna, it's a little more difficult because basically, so Dan's Pharmacy is doing Moderna 3rd doses right now, and they're doing them off label for a later addition and adjustment to it. So if you have Moderna, what you would do is I would speak with your primary care physician or with your physician, then make a decision as to what you want to do with that. But I don't like mixing and matching, and our nurse, more importantly, does not like mixing and matching the vaccines on her license. So I think kind of Dan's is the only kind of game in town for Moderna right now.
Okay. Thanks. If there aren't any other questions for Jericho, we'll move on to the election of the chair and vice chair. So I've been thrilled to serve as your chair for the last year or so. And we go through this process where as we reconvene with new members, we go through the election process. So I am going to, the way this works is that I open the floor to nominations for chair, and then we will take a roll call vote and determine if there is a majority of the nominees that gets voted for, and that person becomes the chair, and then we do the same for vice chair. So feel free to nominate thyself. Don't wait for someone else to nominate you. If whoever would like to, Eflin's unmuted.
I'd like to nominate you again, Brooke.
Okay, are there,
I would second that motion.
okay, are there any other nominations for chair? It's awfully quiet out there. Okay. So I will do a roll.
You for
I'm sorry?
chair. I nominate you for chair as well.
Okay, thanks, Ruthie. Okay, so I will take a roll call vote. Cindy Rivera, so the nomination is for myself to stay as chair. Cindy,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Athlon,
Yes.
Claudia. I'm gonna, Claudia, maybe, there she goes, there.
Of course you.
Ruthie
Yes.
and Jocelyn.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. I am happy to serve again as chair. Okay, I will now accept nominations for vice chair from the floor.
Athelene,
Okay, I have a nomination for Athlon. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, anybody else want to name themselves or nominate someone else? Okay, hearing none by roll call vote. Cindy,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Athlon,
Yes.
Claudia,
Yes.
Ruthie,
Yes.
and Jocelyn.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you all. And Athlon and I will basically continue on as your chair and vice chair moving ahead. Okay, so hang on, my agenda went to sleep. Okay, now the next item on the agenda is the selection of 2 representatives to the Contract Review Committee. I have been admonished by town administration that we must name 2 members of the Contract Review Committee. And I thought I would spend a minute describing it for those of you who may not remember. The Contract Review Committee meets to review the applications to the request for proposals from human services agencies in the community for funding from the town of Nantucket in the coming fiscal year. In the last fiscal year, there was $650,000 of money allocated to the various human service agencies on Nantucket. The process is fairly labor intensive. I'm not going to lie to anyone about there are regular meetings and a fair amount of paperwork to review and discussions to be had. However, having done it as our sole representative the last cycle, I learned more about the human service agencies on Nantucket than I could possibly have known before. It is a really, really interesting process. I will also say that if someone wishes to do it, you are not required to attend every meeting. Everyone does not attend every meeting. And I would love to have a second representative, a second voice from this group who is able to commit to doing as much as possible in the process and contributing to it. And I would say we do have folks here who work for human service agencies that do apply. And I'm not sure of the dynamics of that in terms of being able to serve. And so I don't want to discourage anyone from Sue from stepping up. Jericho, do you have a read on how that might work? Could they just abstain from their agency's work?
Yes, in the past there are other members of CRC that had relationships with groups applying for grants. They simply recuse themselves from that particular discussion.
Okay.
Or not
All
the
right.
discussion, the decision. Apologies.
Yep, the decision. Okay. And so so the timing was a little wonky this last year, but typically the applications are due mid-October and the meetings begin to be scheduled for review, and then they have to be, the recommendation goes to the select board for the allocations before they set the final warrant in January for, no, it's not January, whenever they set the final warrant. So it sort of happens in November, December, and early January, and then it's basically, that's the bulk of the work for the year. So it's a fairly short-term commitment of, and then the other thing that's really interesting is the revenue from the the marijuana tax also comes in and it gets allocated by the contract review committee. So there's additional funding that goes out to different proposals. That's a separate proposal process, but that fell under the purview of the contract review committee this last cycle. So, and that is addiction related programming and services is the use of those funds. So anyway, a substance use and addiction kind of related stuff. There's a specific criteria. So anyway, having said all that, I will open the floor to anyone who wants to raise their own hand or to ask questions about if they want more details about what the role entails.
Does the role entail you having to, I understand you have to attend meetings. Also, it's pretty much you're learning about all the services in Nantucket?
Yes, so you're reading a very detailed profile and application from the agencies who are seeking funding. And then we have discussed, they come and present their proposals to the committee. And then we also do agency visits. So like one or two of us from the committee will have separate meetings where we go and have more of a robust conversation with the agency. And those have been done in person prior to COVID. We did one or two of them in person and did some of them on Zoom. But the idea is, say, the Artists Association of Nantucket has historically come in and applied for funding for their adult art therapy program. And so you go and you can tour the Artists Association facility and meet the staff, and they do, so the stuff you're interested, you can even do a deeper dive into those agencies and meet with their staff. So it's really, really interesting and informative process. Does that answer your question, Ruth?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
All right, terrific.
Brooke,
yeah.
Did you say this is end of October through, is it like, what's the timing again?
It will likely be late November, December, and early January is it. I only did it once, and it was thrown off by COVID. So
if I
Jericho,
may, this
go ahead.
past year, since I was hired last November, we had I think we had 7 meetings. 4 of them were between December and March. Basically, all of them were in the spring, and there's been 2 short notice ones dealing with changes in funding. So it meets on average, I think, like 6 or 7 times.
Yep, and that will all happen earlier than it did last year because the warrant town meeting got delayed to June, so the warrant didn't get set until later in the spring last year. So it's likely going to be wrapped up much earlier in 2022 than it was in 2021.
And do you know if they're going to be in Zoom or if they're in person?
We had been meeting on Zoom. I'm hoping we will continue to meet on Zoom. We still have that option. I'm going to, if I serve again, I'm going to argue for Zoom. It's just easier for everybody. Hence why we do it. And we'll continue to do it as long as we can, I think. So, anybody up for it?
If I may add also, this is one of the things that I have learned more about town government from than anything else has been CRC. So if you're interested in figuring out how the sausage gets made, and this is sort of a very interesting view on how the town works and how a lot of the things that might have been perplexing to you for years and years start to make sense.
I am very interested. I just don't know if I would be the right candidate.
For what reason, Ruthie?
Because I feel like I have no idea. Like I am completely like lost. I mean, I'm trying to catch everything, but I just don't, I have no clue. So I'm like, I would love to do it, but I don't know if I am capable.
Well, I guarantee your ability at accounting related stuff is significantly in excess of mine. So I think that as far as that being able to follow the information and everything, it really needs more of a reality check from people who are likely to be using these things. And I think that is more important. The perspective brought that way is more important than any knowledge or lack thereof.
And I would say interest and curiosity are probably the most important characteristics for someone to serve on this. And I kept my mouth very quiet for a lot of these meetings the first time around. So being on a learning curve, it does not exclude anyone from this, doing this, fulfilling this role. So Ruthie, if you're interested, that's great. Anyone
Okay.
else want to raise their hand? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to offer to do it again. So how about Ruthie and I take the seats on CRC for this round, and I'll hold your hand through the process, Ruth.
Okay, awesome. Let's do it, girl.
Okay, so we just need a motion to officially nominate us and a second, and then we'll vote.
I move to nominate Brooke and Ruthie for the CRC.
Second.
Okay, and that was a second from Cindy. So by roll call, Cindy,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Athlon,
Yes.
Claudia,
Yes.
Ruthie,
Yes.
and Jocelyn.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm so excited to be able to report we have 2 reps. That's very exciting. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both.
So next item on the agenda is to establish future meeting schedule. The first Monday of the month is a bust, as we learned, because there were so many holidays that fell on the first Monday of the month. So if Mondays are still good, we should pick a different week of the month to meet. And the other thing I wanted to ask is if we could each set aside a little bit longer than an hour, because realistically, an hour is not going to cut it if we want to really dig into some meaty stuff in the coming months. And so I was thinking if we could schedule an hour and a half. And so feedback on whether Monday works for people, and would Monday from 6:30 to 8 work for people? So I'm just going to go around and ask you by name to answer. Mondays, yes. 6:30 to 8, yes. So 2 questions. So Cindy?
Yes, and yes.
Okay. Sue?
Third Monday would be best. And yes.
Okay. Athlon?
Yes.
Ruthie?
I would prefer Wednesdays, but if everyone says Monday, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, thank you. I can't do Wednesdays, so since I'm the chair, sorry guys. Claudia?
Yes, it works for me at Mondays and at 6:30.
Okay, and Jocelyn?
Yes, that works.
Okay, so since Sue threw out the third Monday, if anybody has an issue with that, unmute and tell me now. Otherwise, we'll set third Monday of the month as our meeting date. All quiet. Sounds like an approval to me. All right, great. That was easy. Does that work for staff? Jericho and Ann?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yep, it's okay.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Okay, new business. So I did a little inquiry today about what we can do under new business because I wasn't sure. It's something I had copied and pasted for some other agendas. New business is allows us to bring up a topic that was not otherwise on the agenda. Generally speaking, it is discouraged to take any action on new business because public meeting law is intended to have the public know what we're going to discuss and decide in advance of the meeting. So I want to encourage members to use the new business item as we have it to bring up things they want to share with the group or get feedback on. And does anyone have anything they want to say? Athlon.
Hi, thank you. I know I had let you know I wanted to put something on new business tonight. So I was shopping at Stop and Shop, which I do on a very regular basis. And I was in the fresh produce aisle. And I'm sure this has come up in our community before, but I think it's worth saying again. I was talking to a lady who was culling the tomatoes. And I'm watching her do this, and I'm watching the tomatoes that are getting put in this box. And I just asked her, you know, what happens to this food? Because it looked perfectly good. Like, I think it has like a tiny little blemish or something that she calls it. And a lot was getting thrown in there. And she said it goes in the garbage. And this is just heartbreaking to me to watch this happen because it's perfectly good food. And I just felt as though I should bring it up with this committee since we address human services and human needs. And I know going into the winter months, coming off a pandemic, that like people need food. And so I just couldn't sit on it, and it was just eating at me. And so I felt I needed to bring it up here and think about in what ways can we facilitate something being done or discussed or putting the right people together to do something. And I know this is not an action that we can take tonight, but I just want to put it out there as new business for us to consider.
Thanks, Athlon. Does anyone want to remark on that?
I'm surprised that they're throwing food away. I do know that they have the pantry, and most of the time they are giving the food to the pantry. So that as far as that, I know that they were giving food to the pantry. I'm surprised that they're throwing food away.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to respond that I clearly made sure to ask her because I thought that some stuff goes to the pantry as well. But I was looking at the product that was getting pulled. And they were, I don't know, I was picking up tomatoes. And so they were what I was picking up, and I was looking at them. I looked in the box and really they looked edible. And so I specifically said, what is going to happen with this product that you're pulling out? And she said, it'll go in the garbage. So I, specifically asked her about that. So maybe there are certain things that can go to the pantry and certain things that can't. I'm not sure, but I'm interested in us finding out because that particular product was going to go in the trash.
Okay, thanks. Sue?
I know that the UU Church used to have a food rescue program, and I haven't heard, I mean, because of COVID, I don't know how, like, that's not been functioning the same way, but that might be a group we could see. Is that something that the Stop and Shop would be allowed to give to? I know there's so many different health rules about food, but
I can actually investigate the health department view of what can be done with this food afterwards, although I will probably need a little bit more information about what specifically, like, tomatoes, like which particular tomatoes or something. There might be something specific to that vegetable or something. But I will check with that tomorrow.
Cindy, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my understanding is in those situations, the Stop and Shop is not necessarily, so in other places, I don't know if there's many documentaries on this, in other places, there's access to where the trash is put. So there's plenty of groups that just go in and rescue this food. In our case, there's no access. I don't know if you've noticed that, but there's no way to get to the trash. So my understanding is that those big corporations are not necessarily likely to engage in any sort of thing. So there has to be like a organization that comes and rescues the food, but in our case, we can't really access. So I'm not sure. Maybe Jericho can research that.
And also, I know that they have the food has a date it was processed and a date it has an expiration date. So the expiration date, I believe, has certain laws and regulations with different types of foods. And once it is expired, they are no longer allowed to not only sell it, but also they're not allowed to give it away to people. So that I do know there's different regulations on different produce, canned food, box foods, just there's different regulations when it comes to the expiration dates on them.
So I'd like to add that there are some new initiatives on food security on Nantucket. Some of you might recall when Matt Haffenreffer came and spoke to us some months back. That effort is growing, and also the food pantry is a recipient of town funding, and so this is a great conversation because Ruth and I will have the opportunity to ask the food pantry questions about do they collaborate with the markets on island for donations of produce and so forth. And I do believe that Bartlett Farm does donate some produce, and
Yes.
so it might be a conversation that we can encourage or facilitate better collaboration if it's not happening as efficiently as it could be between the Stop and Shop and our food security efforts on the island. So I think it's a worthy topic to follow through the CRC process, as well as maybe inviting Matt back to give us an update on what they're doing in the food security area apart from the food pantry. So great. And then I, under new business, would like to bring up, well, it's actually not new business, but one of the agenda items that I'm pretty sure we're going to have next month is a return visit from Government Performance Solutions, the people doing the behavioral health assessment. They have generated a draft final report of their assessment, and they've asked to come back and represent to us their findings. So that'll be our big topic for next month's agenda as an update. So they've already been in touch with me. So, and Sue?
For new business, I have two different things, but is there a place to do I don't know, it's almost like a plug, but like a notification of something? Is that public comment?
Yes, and you know what, I thought I had, but I might add board comments or human service, like board member updates or something like that. So, but we'll put it under public comment today. So we'll move on to public comment.
Well, I'll do first one that would be new business.
Okay.
In my world, I've noticed that in places like on the Cape, specifically Cumberland Farms, they all have Sharps containers in their restrooms. And I don't think we have any, I'm fairly certain we don't have any public sharps containers. And I know I haven't seen a proliferation of needles lately, but I'm a little worried that I know it has been a problem in certain parks and areas, and I'm wondering if that is something this board might want to look at.
Okay,
'Cause, yeah, I worry that people don't dispose properly or know about access.
I'll also
Great.
follow up on any known public sharps drops.
Okay.
great. Thanks, Jericho.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we'll move on to public comment, Sue, so you can plug
Oh,
ASAP.
I'm not even going to plug ASAP, but I should do that too. I serve on a regional commission on the status of women, and I was hoping to have a flyer to share with all of you, but I don't have it yet, but hopefully tomorrow. But we're holding an event on Nantucket. It's the first time this commission has come to Nantucket, and it's called Hearing More Voices, and it's inviting women to come and share their experiences with the commission in terms of just problems or concerns they have in the community and in the state, whether it's access to healthcare, childcare, I mean, anything that affects women and families, they would like to hear. And we'll have English obviously will be the primary language, but there will be translation and interpreting services available for Spanish and Portuguese. So we'll be putting out flyers and putting it all over social media, but we invite people to come on the 23rd of October in the afternoon at the community school, 56 Center Street, who we're partnering with. So we encourage anyone, any woman or any organization that can speak to representing a community of women on island, whether it's, immigrants or Spanish speakers, Portuguese speakers, parents, new moms, grandparents who raise children, whatever population you might have access to that people might not feel comfortable speaking on their own behalf. If people can, share experiences, that we would love to hear it.
Awesome. If you can send forward that flyer to me, I would appreciate it.
You betcha.
Great. If you would send it to Jericho, and then they can send it out to all of us.
Awesome.
And then this wasn't on the agenda, but I'm gonna cover it anyway for Ruthie. I want to just remind everybody that of the open meeting law, that 3 of us cannot be in communication with each other as a group on any topic related to the work we do here. So the trick to emails is don't hit reply all when we get emails to the entire board. And mostly that's innocuous, it's most of what we're doing is scheduling and so forth. But for Ruthie's understanding that we are not allowed to communicate as a group or a subgroup outside of publicly posted meetings. So it's not that there's been an issue, it's just a reminder to everybody since we're starting back up again. And
Just so that I understand, you're saying that we can't talk about what we're talking about in our meetings to each other outside of work, pretty much.
right, sort of one-on-one conversations, if you see each other around town, is fine, but no 3 members of a board can gather either electronically or in person and have conversations about the work of the committee that they serve on
Okay.
together. In other words, we can't be sort of doing business, as it were, outside of these publicly posted meetings. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And sometimes we form little subgroups to do work that, of 2, and that's fine. So like if we have a little project or something, we'll assign it to 2 people and they're happy, they're able to collaborate, the 2 of them, and report back to the group. That is permitted within the public meeting regulations, but 3 of us, it's 1 too many. So anyway, thanks you all. I'm so excited. We are scheduled to get 2 more seats as soon as the state approves. And the select board will be going back through the nomination process. So if you know of anybody who would like to serve in this capacity, there will be open nominations process again for those 2 additional seats in the coming weeks. I don't have a date yet, but share that with your friends who might be interested in this work. And thanks y'all for being here tonight. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Cindy,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Ethlyn,
Yes.
Claudia,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and Jocelyn.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. It's so exciting. We're back. I'll see you the 3rd Monday in November, which is probably Thanksgiving week. Good Lord. All right.
We're gonna try and get that email out as quickly as possible. Welcome, Ruth. Thank you for joining us, and it's good to see everybody. I'm looking forward to another good year of this.
It's really
Bye.
exciting. All right. Take
Thank
care.
you.
y'all.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Welcome, Ruthie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.